Hi class. So welcome to Friday, and we are going to continue our the project that we were working on Wednesday, which involves the national park boundary. Sorry, I've been up since like 2:30 in the morning. You ever have one of those nights where you just wake up and you just can't go to sleep? So I am running on empty, but let's do this. So we were talking about uh, the problem that we wanted to solve is we wanted to calculate how many national parks are there in each state, and then we wanted to display that on a map. So let's see, we were to the point where here I open up the project from last time. And here's the map that we were working on last time. We got these two data layers. We got the layer for the United States state boundaries, and a layer that has just national parks, national park boundaries. And so one thing we'll notice is some of these parks, Smoky Mountains, it's fine. Here, let's do them in the Yellowstone. So let's make this a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Ooh. Clear selection. Here we'll zoom in. So Yellowstone, this is Yellowstone National Park. And Yellowstone is actually in 3 different states. Most of it's in Wyoming, but part of it is in Montana and part of it is in Idaho, over here. This part's in Idaho. So you got this part in Montana and all of this in Wyoming. So based on our goal of counting how many national parks are in each of these states, what we will find is that Yellowstone counts for a park in 3 states. So Yellowstone will be counted 3 times. Okay, so what tool can we use to determine how many parks are in each state? And the tool we're going to use is Spatial join. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if we look at this, let's look at the spatial join tool. So I got it up here. It's in the toolbox. You can search for it in geoprocessing, but there's a link to it up here, a button for it up here in the toolbar under analysis, spatial join. So it's a pretty useful tool. And if we look at the options that we can specify for performing a spatial join, the first thing we got to pick is a target feature. So in this case, ultimately what we're trying to do is count how many national parks are in the in each state. So our target feature is going to be the states. So that would be U.S. state boundaries. And to that we're going to join the features in the national parks. And then our output, this is going to create an output feature class, and let's call it national parks in states. Okay. We're going to join 1-to-1. We'll keep all the features in the target, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't need. And our match is going to be, option is whether or not the things in the join intersect the targets. And our search radius we'll just leave that blank. You could put in there that you maybe want to have a little buffer around each of your target polygons, each of the states in this case, but we're going to leave that blank. And then down here in the fields, what I'm going to do is, let's see, let's close this for a second. Before we continue with this, the result of this analysis is going to be a number. It's going to be a count, and that count is going to correspond to how many national parks are in each state. So we're going to need a place to store that count in our result, and the way that I'm going to do this here is I'm going to create a new field in my target, which is the states layer, and that target is going to be called, that field is going to be called National Park Counts. Okay, so let's do that. So that's down here. So I'll open up this attribute table, and I'm going to add a field. And I know there's lots of stuff in here that we don't need, but I'm going to call this NP count for National Park Count. And the data type here is going to be, well, I'll keep it a long. Longs are integer type numbers, so they can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And it's formatting, let's just make it a numerical format. Decimal places, we don't need any decimal places. Okay. All right, so I've created a new field. Let me save this up here. And we should see it then if I close this and scroll all the way to the right of the attribute table here. NP count. So this is a column that's going to store a number which corresponds to how many national parks are in each of our states. And there's nothing there right now. It's just null. Okay. So I'll come back here now, and my target feature is the US states. I'm going to join the national parks layer to it. I gave a name to my output feature class, and I'm interested where the join features intersect my targets, the states. And then down here in the fields, what I'm going to do is I am going to specify, if I can find it, let's refresh this. Looking for the field I just created. I'm looking for the field I just created. Here, maybe it hasn't refreshed. Let me open the tool again. Why is this so hard to find? Oh, there it is, NP count. Okay, so this is the field I created that's empty right now. But I want this output field, so I select it here, and I can specify what merge rule I want. So what I want to do here is I don't want to just take the first element that appears in the join feature and put it in here. What I want to do is I actually want to count something that's in the join features. So I'm going to count, and then I'm going to delete this because it's in the source is national parks only boundaries. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count park names. Okay, and let's do this. Okay, so the way this will work is if we look at let's look at Wyoming. So in Wyoming, we have two national parks, Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. Okay, so in the parks, national parks only boundaries layer, there are two features that are going to be joined to my target feature, and what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to put in the NP count column of the output a count of how many unique park names occur in my joint feature data set. So what I should get is a 2 in that column for the state of Wyoming. Let's run this and see what happens. It says fail. Okay. So this has happened to me before. Global ID 1. For some reason, some of these fields are like in here even though they don't exist. I'm going to delete some of these at the bottom. All right, let's run it again. So it can't put them in the output because they don't exist. Okay, it worked. So let me pull this down here, make this one invisible. So now let's click on Wyoming and look at its attributes. Select. Okay, so if we look at the, well, let's do it this way. Let's look at the attribute table and close that. And then, so I have Wyoming selected. If I come down here and click this button right here, it's just going to show the row that corresponds to that selected polygon. So it's Wyoming. And if I scroll over somewhere, we'll see, there it is, NP count. There it is, NP count, and you see the number in there is 2. 2. So it counted 2 because there are 2 national parks in Yellowstone. And it counted those up and put them into the output target feature. Okay. So what we accomplish here is with the spatial join is we can use some aspect of the spatial aspect of our data to to add or enrich another data set. So in this case, we're looking to see, where our features, which are the national parks, intersect the features which are our states, and we created an output field in our target, which is the states, that would then count up how many unique national parks. So it's counting up the unique park names in the national parks layer and putting that number in that column of the output. Let's explore a little bit more and see if this works elsewhere. So let's see. So Montana has this is Glacier National Park right here, and then Yellowstone. So Montana should have a 2 in its count column too. Oh, it's got 3. What am I missing? There's gotta be, oh, right there. There's a little national park. What is that? Nez Perce National Historical Park. I had no idea that even existed. Okay, little itty bitty teeny tiny thing. So Montana's got 3 national parks: Nez Perce, Glacier, and Yellowstone. Okay. Um, okay, so if you guys have any questions, stop me. I think you guys, if you work through the activities in chapter 3 of the textbook, you'll do this operation in that textbook. They do a spatial join on what is the data? It's obesity data and food islands. So they're counting up the number of food islands in the various counties of Illinois, I think, Michigan, one of those states in the Midwest. And the more repetitions you get using these tools, the more comfortable you'll be. So work through that if you get a chance. All right. So the next thing I want to do is, well, now I want to visualize this. I want to visualize our counts of the number of national parks in each state. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create labels that appear on each of the states, and that label's value is going to correspond to the value in this column called NP counts that we created and populated with the spatial join. Okay, so let's close some of this stuff, and let's turn off the national parks boundary. I'll pull that down a little bit lower. And in the national parks in the states layer that we created from the spatial join, I'm going to go to label properties, and the field I want to label, let me delete this, the field I want to be the label is NP count. There it is. And make it a little bigger. Okay, and I got to right click and turn on the label, and there we go. That's a little too big. Check that out. That's pretty cool. So the number you see is superimposed on each state is the number of national parks or national historical parks in that state. So which state has the most parks? Well, let's look at Alaska's got 9. How many has Hawaii got? Hawaii's got 4. California's got 10. California wins. And it looks like Rhode Island, Connecticut, Georgia, Alabama, Wisconsin, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska have 0 national parks. Well, we should probably remedy that. I think they need a national park. And so the way that we've done things here has resulted in these states that have no national parks. There's just nothing labeled there. So it would be nice if we could replace that no label with a number. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we could do that. We could go into the attribute table, and we could find them. You know, we could like select these states. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to select these states. Here, I think I got them all. Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Alabama, Connecticut, Georgia, Rhode Island, Wisconsin. And then I could come in here and I could actually put I should have deleted all this other stuff we don't need. Put zeros in here. I could put zeros in here and that would fix that. Is there a better way to do this? Well, I could do go to this column. After I have these selected, another way I could select them is I could do select by attributes and selection type, new selection, add expression. So I could select where I think this will work is equal to null. There is null. Apply. And it selects those states where there's NP count that's nothing. There's nothing in there. It's null. And then what I can do is, this is kind of cool. So I can go to this column and I can go to, let me calculate this field. And I can calculate this field. Let's make this window bigger. And I could say, this equals 0. And then just hit apply. Look at that, it fills them all in. So I could calculate this column and just say these are all equal to 0, and now all the zeros are there. Isn't GIS amazing? Clear all the selections. Okay, so now I've completed my project. I've started with a problem that I wanted to solve, and I thought about, what kind of data am I going to need to solve this problem, and I went out and got that data. One data set was polygons for the geometry of the states. And yeah, there's a lot of other information in that data set as well that we didn't use. And then the other data set were polygons for land that's administered by the National Park Service. And we filtered that down to focus just on national parks or national historical parks. And then we performed a spatial join to join that data, the national parks and national historical parks, to our target, which was the states. And when we did the join, we populated a field which would give us the count of unique park names inside each of our state polygons. And then we did some visualization and cleaning up. We got a cool map. All right. So here is, that the tool we use is spatial join. All right. Let me pose a new problem for you, and we'll start thinking about this one. So here's a problem. Well, let me show you some data first. Let's blank that layer. Bring the U.S. states to the top. All right, our state borders, and let's add a folder connection because I got another data set in here. If I can remember where I put it, here it is. So I got this data set from the Forest Service. Let me put it out here and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and let's turn the national parks back on. We'll leave the national parks off. We'll just focus. So what we're looking at here, let's zoom in here and click on some of these. Let's look at the attributes. So this is Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest, and this is Bitterroot National Forest, and this is Salmon Chalice National Forest. And this is Custer Gallatin National Forest. So what do I have? Shoshone National Forest. National forests. So this data layer is a polygon showing the border of all of our national forests, all the forest lands administered by the National Forest Service. Here's George Washington and Monongahela. Here's George Washington, and here's Monongahela National Forest. I can't remember what this is called. Allegheny? Yes, Allegheny National Forest. Okay, so we could do something similar to what we did. We could be like, how many national forests are there in each state? But you know, there's another dimension to national forests and national parks, which is probably more important, and that's the area. You know, some national forests are tiny, and some national forests are like bigger than some states, especially out west. So a question that someone might want to answer is, well, what's the total area of national forests in each of the states? All right. The best tool for answering a question like that is, well, there's a couple different workflows you could go through to answer that question. Everything from you know, splitting the national parks, national forests using the state borders, and then counting up the polygons that are within each of the states. But probably, I think the easiest way to do this would be to use a tool called Summarize Within. Summarize Within. So that's one of these tools up. Go to Analyze. It's another one of these tools. Yeah, it's right there. Summarize Within. Okay. And you read the description here. It says, overlays a polygon layer with another layer to summarize the number of points, lengths of lines, or area of the polygons within each polygon, and calculates attribute field statistics about those features within the polygon. Ugh, easier said than that's a lot to digest. But what this is going to do is it's going to take the area of each of these national forest polygons and partition them based on how much is in each of the states. So down here in you know, George Washington National Forest is mostly in Virginia, but there's a little slivers of it in West Virginia up here. So that part that's in West Virginia will count toward West Virginia's tally, and the part in Virginia will count toward Virginia's tally. At least that's what we want. Monongahela, same thing. Most of it is in West Virginia, but there's these little tiny chunks in no, I guess it's all in West Virginia. Huh. I did not know that. Okay. So let's take a look at the options we have when we do a Summarize Within. Okay. So the first option we got to pick is input polygons. So the input polygons are the polygons that define our partitions, which in this case is the U.S. state boundaries. You know what? Before we do this, I don't know if this will break, but I always like to, you know, so remember this came from a shape file. So I'm going to export this to my geodatabase and just call it National Forest Boundaries. Okay, just export it to my geodatabase. All these spatial processing, spatial analysis tools seem to work more fluidly on data that's in a geodatabase. So then I'll remove that other layer. Okay. And it's funny that those got so tiny. So weird. Okay. So now let's do Summarize Within. So our input polygons are the U.S. state boundaries. And the hold on a second. Why can't I see? Huh. Oh, crap. Does anybody know what happened? It's good. This is a good little test. Does anybody know what just happened? So it looks like when I exported the shapefile, it deleted everything except for one national forest. Does anybody know why that happened? It happened because I had that forest selected when I did the export to feature class, so it only exported what was selected. That's actually useful if you ever want to export just part of the data in a layer to a new feature class. You can just select what you want and export it. So I'm going to have to do that again. Put that back on. Let's delete this. And okay, so I put the shapefile for the National Forest back on, and let's go into the database, and we'll delete that feature class I just made because I'm going to make it again. So go here, and everything's clear, good. I don't have anything selected. Data, export features. I'm going to export this to National Forest. Oh, I can't have spaces. Forest boundaries. There we go. Now I'll remove this, and there we go. Okay. Now back to summarize within. All right, here we go. Input polygons, U.S. state borders. Input features are in the national forest borders. Okay. Summary fields. So it turns out that well, let's see what fields we have here that we can summarize. So one of the fields in the national parks feature is acres. Another field is shape length, and another field is area. Actually, let's get rid of shape length. We don't really need that. Shape area. And the statistic we want to count is the sum. We want to sum up how much of the acres and how much of the areas in each of these input polygons. Down here, you can. This is going to be redundant in this case, but when you do this, these fields are just numerical. They could be anything. It could be like, instead of the acreage in each of these polygons, it could be the number of bald eagles in each of these polygons. In which case, it would, when you do this analysis, it would partition that total into the various states at the borders based on the relative size of the polygons in those two states. So if it's like, let's see, down here, here's a national forest that's sort of on the border between Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico, and it's so if I had a feature in my data in my attribute table for this national park that was like the number of reindeer, and there was 100, you'd expect, like, just based on this, it looks like 20%. That actually looks like a reindeer right there. Would be in New Mexico, and maybe 60% is in Texas, and 20% is in Oklahoma. So it would divide up that 100 reindeer into those different states based on the relative size of the polygons in each of those states, if that makes any sense. But let's do this. We'll calculate this. It occurs to me now that what we really want is not acres, but a more useful thing would be square miles. and square miles isn't in our data set. Okay, so let's calculate it. So we'll go to our national forest boundaries, to the attribute table, and yeah, who knows what the units are here? Shape area, I don't know what that is. That doesn't look like square miles to me. So let's add a field. Close this. Where did it go? Here it is. It's not letting me edit the attribute table. That's weird. I don't know why it wouldn't let me add it from that view. So I'm going to add a field in my attribute table here. I'll call it, let's call it area square miles, and we'll make it not a raster. We'll make it double point precision, so it can be a decimal number. And over here, oh, that's why. The save button is currently disabled due to unsaved edits in one or more maps in this project. I saved my edits. What haven't I saved? Sometimes ArcGIS is frustrating in this way. What have I not saved? I'm pretty sure I saved everything. You're so annoying. Save edits. Yes. National parks in the States. I don't remember editing that level. No, come back. Ugh. All right, now let's add this new field. So we're going to call it area square miles. Make it a double format and numerical format, so it displays, let's give it a few decimal places, maybe, I don't know, 4, sure. Okay, and then save that change. Okay, so I've created a column, a new field in my attribute table, and what I want to do in this field is I have all these geometries for the various national forests, and I want to get ArcGIS Pro to calculate how big each of those polygons is. So I right click on here. One of the options is calculate geometry. Okay. very, very useful. And I'm going to calculate geometry, and the target field is area square miles, and the property I want to calculate is geodesic area. Okay. Remember, if I calculate, well, it's not an option here, but the area on the plane of the map, the projection that we're using would not be accurate, but geodesic involves following the curvature of the Earth. And then I get to pick what units I want my area to be in. So I'm going to do square miles. And the coordinate system isn't going to matter. I'll just use whatever's in the current map. Well, it would matter, but I just want to use WGS 1984. And it's working. It's working to calculate the areas of all the national parks. It's got a lot of work to do. When you are doing spatial analysis that involves functions or tools that take a lot of time to process, one thing ArcGIS Pro does is you can schedule jobs. So you can sort of set up a bunch of jobs to run sequentially, a bunch of steps to run sequentially, and then you can just click run, and then it does it, and you can walk away. But this is almost done. Done. Okay. So I have the square miles of each of the size, the area in square miles for each of the national parks. Sorry, national forests. Let's close that. Close that. Let's look at the map. All right. So now let's go back and to the summarize within, and we want to summarize the national forest boundaries within each state. National forest boundaries, and it'll create a new output feature class. Let's give it a name. We'll call it National Forests in the States. Okay, something like that. And now one of the summary fields we have here will be this area square miles. I could do area acres and the other, but that's the only one we really want, area in square miles. We want to calculate the area in square miles of national forests in each of the states. So the statistic that we want to do is we want to sum all these up. And let's calculate, not square meters. Let's add square miles as a shape attribute. Summary as a summary of the attribute, the shape of these national forests in units of square miles as well. So what this will do is it's basically going to do this operation redundantly. Since area in square miles is already a feature, we're going to perform the sum operation on that, but while it's running, it's also going to figure out on the fly the area of each of these polygons for the national forests that are in each of the states. You can do, we're not going to do this right now, but if let's say there were national forests and there were national forest preserves, you could group your answer based on those two different characteristics, those two different classifications using the group field, but we don't have that in this case. What's missing? Parameter is missing or invalid. Okay. National Park area States. All right, it's working. I don't know why I had the wrong path there for my output feature class. I think I hadn't tried. I tried to put it into something that wasn't a geodatabase. So it's working. Look, it's got you probably can't see that, but it's got 16 steps, and it's on step 4 of 16. Who knows what all those 16 steps are, but I'm sure each one is very important, and it's working very hard. I got a pretty fast computer here too. It's got 6 processing cores and a nice beefy GPU. And it's done with step 16, and now it is writing features. There's 200 of them. 200 features. All right, it's done. Let's take a look at the results. We'll put the national forest boundaries on the top here, but here's my output feature. Here's my output layer, and let's take a look at the data. So right-click on this, and let's look at the attribute table. And so I got a row for each state. Well, I got 51 rows. What's the other state? District of Columbia. Yes. Taxation without representation. Yeah, right. Like DC doesn't have any representation. So that's my MP count still there. Summarize area in square miles. Sum area square miles. So you look at these two numbers, and ideally they would be exactly the same, but they're not. Maybe we'll take a look at that a little bit. Let's look at where's a state where it's got a national. It's got one. Pennsylvania. We'll go to Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania has one national forest, right there, Allegheny. And let's open that up. Okay, so Allegheny National Forest. Its area in square miles is 1,157.6255 square miles. That was what we calculated using the calculate geometry function. Okay, and let's take a look at the row for Pennsylvania. I'll select this. Oh, wrong keyboard. I'm going to keep that selected. We'll find the row for Pennsylvania in the output feature class. And so is this Pennsylvania? Yes, Pennsylvania. And I go over here and we'll look at, well, look at that. The sum of the area inside, the sum of national parks area inside Pennsylvania in square miles is 1157.625. 625. So those are exactly the same. The only difference is this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places showing, and this one's only got 4. So why isn't this one exactly the same? And the reason is this is a number that's calculated based on the polygons as they're rendered in this data file, and those polygons are going to have imperfections. They were, the little piece of the border missing here or there, little discrepancies between the way it looks and the way that the land was actually surveyed. But they're pretty close. They're pretty close. All right. So, feels like a slog today, but Monday we'll look at this a little bit more, and one thing you might want to do now is, well, we'll take a look at some other examples to see if these numbers that are being calculated for us make sense, then we think, well, what might you want to do with this information, this data? And one thing that comes to mind is um, maybe you want to calculate, like, as a percentage of total land area in each state, how much of it is national forest. And I don't know, that would be pretty interesting, actually. I think we'll do that on Monday. All right. So have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next week.